Hi, everybody. I'm Norma Hatfield, and I'm with the Kinship Families Coalition of Kentucky. And we're doing just quick conversations. There'll be a series of videos, and we are talking to David Weisenhorn about a series of workshops called PASTA, or Parenting a Second Time Around. David, would like to welcome you, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Norma. I'm David Weisenhorn. I'm a senior specialist for parenting and child development at the University of Kentucky. That I work in the College of Agriculture, but in the Department of Family and Consumer Sciences Extension.
Okay. So we did a quick conversation about the first workshop, which was called It Wasn't Supposed to Be Like This. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the second workshop, and let me get this right. And it's called Getting to Know You. Now, David, you all, why don't you kind of explain a little bit more about PASTA, who gives it, how they can, get signed up for it or find out more about it. Let's kind of just start with the very basics first, and then we'll go into getting to know you.
For sure, for sure. So as I mentioned in my title, I told you I worked for the department or the Department of Family and Consumer Sciences Extension. The extension branch of the university is the branch that kind of reaches out to every county. So there is an extension office in every county, all 120 counties in Kentucky. So if you're listening or watching this, you should be able to look in your county right now to see where your extension office is. Chances are you may have already been there, but what we do is we provide evidence-based research on a plethora of information, maybe aging, finance, foods and nutrition, parenting, relationships. So a lot of information is pushed through the extension office. So a great place for resources. And one of the resources that we're providing right now is the PASTA, and that's an acronym for Parenting a Second Time Around, which is targeted towards kinship families and just trying to work towards providing resources for families. And that curriculum comes from Cornell University, and it is an evidence-based program. And what all that really means is that, hey, the people that attend the program report that is beneficial to them in increasing their overall life, their life satisfaction. So it really is a helpful program that's designed to bring resources to those that need the resources.
Okay, so I mean, we're going to talk over time about 8 of these workshops, and as I mentioned before, we talked a little bit about the first one called "It Wasn't Supposed to Be Like This." Thinking about, for me as an example, I have my grandmother, I wasn't planning to raise these kids. I'm happy to do it. I'm blessed to do it. Wouldn't have it any other way, but it wasn't supposed to be like this in a perfect world. And then the second workshop that we're going to talk more about is called Getting to Know You. So tell us a little bit more about this particular workshop.
Sure. As you mentioned, the first workshop really talks and kind of deals with some of the emotional understanding and feelings that are happening with the kinship families, like with the ones that are providing the parenting. This second workshop is really more focused on the child's emotions and feelings. And what I really love this piece because it is also involved in a lot of parenting curriculum. And it's the one piece that I think really makes a difference in parenting. And the reason it does is because it focuses on the child. It focuses on the development of that child. And when I talk about development, I mean all of the pieces of the child that are developing, not just the brain, but the social emotional piece of the child, the physical piece of the child, the mathematical and comprehensive, right? The cognitive piece, the brain itself, and all of the emotions that are attached in that. And so being able to understand and better understand that child helps parents of all across the board on how we set expectations, maybe what some rules are, and why it's important that when we parent that our rules change as that child ages, as do our expectations of them, but also as their expectations of us. And so really a great workshop that really dives deep into temperament of the child and why that's important, and how that affects all these things I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can tell you that some caregivers I've talked to will say, I don't need to be told how to be a parent. I already did that, you don't need to teach me anything. But I think if you kind of go back to a few things that you talked about, it's not about telling somebody they don't know how to parent. It's about sharing enhancement of different changes, because it is a little different. These kids have gone through something traumatic. Just being placed somewhere else, whether it's with a grandmother or a great aunt or, uncle or something like that, their family situation changed. And you don't know emotionally everything that's going on. It's not quite the same as if you're just parenting your own child under a normal circumstance. And what I love about this is you're building on things. You're building on, at least my view of things. You're going back to this just happened and the emotional piece that you have because it happened. And now you're going into the piece of the child. And it's kind of building on each other.
Well, it does. It sets a really good understanding, first of all, that hey, if we can be honest with the way that our life felt like it got turned upside down, the same is really true of this child or children that I'm now in primary caregiver of. And so understanding that, hey, your life turned upside down and theirs did too. And the hardest part about that is children don't often communicate well or in terms that adults often understand. Our communication, I say our children's communication often is expressed through behaviors. And oftentimes if we're not fully aware where they are developmentally, those behaviors could be behaviors that we don't necessarily approve of. And so oftentimes our simple attempts at parenting that are oftentimes punitive in nature. And what I mean is that we punish a lot of times a child who's expressing what we would say is undesirable behaviors. But the reality is they're just expressing that internal state that they have that looks undesirable. It looks messy. It doesn't come out right. It looks like a lot of anger. It looks like a lot of sadness, explosion. And so it's critical to understand where that child is. The way that they're behaving oftentimes is not an attempt to hurt you as a parent or a caregiver. It's just a way to try and express themselves because they don't have the proper words. They don't have the access to the understanding of their emotions yet. And so, again, very critical for the caregiver to understand that this is just a form of communication. And for me to be upset about that is not the approach to take because it doesn't enhance our relationship. It actually just it does worse. It exacerbates that. It makes it much more difficult for us to get along. And I think most people would agree that a good relationship is a harmonious one. And the way that we reach harmony is to better understand each other and work towards that common understanding. So that is really, in essence, that is what's happening in this second workshop, is to gain a lot more understanding of your child and the way in which that child develops.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important because some people could hear this at first and they're thinking, oh, you're learning how to, I'm going to tell you what to do. Even though you might be a grandmother or great grandparent, it's not about that. It's about bringing awareness to what's going on with the child, so that you can better deal with it and kind of step back and kind of handle that. Now, one of the things we talked about in the other workshop, and I kind of want to go over that because I don't know that everybody is watching all of these videos. These workshops are 2 hours.
Yes, typically. And so, and this may vary, and you may hear me say that on some of these questions, but it will vary a little bit as to the county in which this may be offered. All of our extension offices have the capability to offer these classes. If they are offering these workshops, I said classes, workshops. If they're offering these workshops, it depends. They're typically 2 hours in length. And while that sounds really long, what you'll find is that due to a number of, depending on the size of the participants, the number of participants, that it could take a long time for us to hash out some of the feelings and some of the process that's taking place within our homes. And so 2 hours goes a lot faster than it may sound.
Yeah, so I don't need, if I'm interested in class, I don't need to do any homework or anything like that. I just need to be able to come, listen, share if I want to. I don't have to share, correct?
That is very correct. Yes, and there's no cost to the workshops. The first thing I would say is call your local extension office. Ask if they are offering these workshops. If they say we don't have a PASTA group currently, then say I want to be a part of that. I want to be on the next one. When does the next one start? They should be able to offer that to you and give you a timeline. If you're within the community right now and you're a community partner and you say, maybe I work for health services or I work for another organization that really has a heart to work with kinship families, I want you to know that our extension offices love partnerships. They really enjoy partnering. Most of the education that we do provide in the extension or out of the extension office, as we do have space. And sometimes that becomes a barrier for some other partners within our community of offering educational information, as they don't have a space that's large enough. Extension offices typically do. So we welcome that. If you want to come and help with that, we would love for you to reach out to the local extension office in your county.
So I don't have to be a kinship caregiver to take this class.
That is correct. You do not. You do not have to be. It might most behoove you. I mean, that is going to be, the content is geared towards kinship families, and so you may be able to come and receive a lot of that information. But it may behoove you. It will probably be most geared towards parenting a second time around, or those that may be in a kinship parenting role.
Yeah, but if what I was thinking about when you said earlier that, you like partnerships, which, the coalition likes to partner with you, which is why we're trying to highlight this series so we can help out there. But like if I'm running a family resource center, as an example, if I wanted to get this out there, or even have other, resource coordinators kind of learn this, we could still contact you. We could still be a part of that and get the word
Absolutely. And maybe you're thinking about starting a group and you don't have the space and you need some space. And maybe you're like, wow, I didn't know there was a curriculum out there that we could follow. So again, yes, please. Family resource centers are wonderful, and we do a lot of connection and partnering with them around the state. So we would welcome that from you if you're listening.
Yeah. So some of your agents also lead support groups, right? In some counties?
That's correct. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you bringing that up. One of the things I do want to be clear with is that the agents that run these groups are not certified counselors. And so that means that we strongly encourage I strongly encourage my agents not to provide. We don't give advice. We don't provide counsel, if you will. So what we do in extension is we provide evidence-based resources, and so we would connect you. And the intent here through a series of workshops is to identify the resources that kinship families need that are helpful, and then connect you to those resources, specifically those resources that are close to you within proximity. We understand that travel is oftentimes a barrier. And so what we want to do is we want to identify all of those resources within your county that would best help you to thrive as a kinship parent.
Yeah. I just want to share with folks. So when I first started learning about, kinship care, and I started becoming an advocate, there was a grandmother that did need some more resources, local support and things like that. And we actually had a meeting with one of the extension agents here in Hardin County, and they brought a folder, and it had information about nutrition. it also had some contact information for, food bank and, just different things that happened to point out, hey, there's a clothes closet, here's a phone number. It was just things that were more local for us, but it was things that she didn't know about. And that information right there is what helped her, have food on the table and help the kids get, coats and things like that. And I know it's different in any community that's out there, but I'm just sharing with, some of the amazing things that happens here locally. And I can't say enough about what you all do.
Well, thank you.
One more question. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
One more question. With the pandemic and everything, and we'll probably cover this in every discussion, but are these classes, I think I know the answer, but are these classes virtual or are they only in person? Does it depend?
Yeah, again, it's going to depend and mostly on the participants, what they want. Before the pandemic, I think most, if not all of the classes that we were running at that time, and those groups were in person. As the pandemic hit, I think a lot of those went virtual. We are back now. According to university rules, we are back to face-to-face. Some people are returning face-to-face. Some people are not returning. So it may depend on the group within your county, again, to reach out to them and just find out how they're meeting. I know some agents are willing to say, hey, well, if some of you want to come to face-to-face, you're welcome to do that. Others can join us virtually if that best suits their group. The need, again, here is going to be just determined by the participants within the group.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that there are potential different options depending on different situations that are out there and resources that are available. So I want to just kind of wrap this up. This is the second workshop called Getting to Know You. We're going to put on the Kinship site, kinshipky.org, more information about the co-ops and contacts. Actually, we'll probably put the main site and then you can kind of drill down from there. And we'll also put the information about PASTA and how to get connected with folks. That we're going to have another video discussion a little bit later. And the third workshop is going to be called Rebuilding a Family. David, anything else you want to add?
No, just reach out to your local extension office and find out what's available. And if there's not one running, we will do our best to get one started for you.
Well, I think it's just an exciting resource, much needed resource for kinship families and really any family, depending on what's going on, but specifically kinship family support groups. We just want to get as much as we can resource-wise out there, and we sure appreciate what you all are doing.
We're happy to do it. We love to see you.
Well, thank you, and check out us on social media because we'll be having a follow-up conversation about rebuilding a family. It's the third workshop in PASTA.